Hi and welcome back to Sick Games Entertainment. Wanted to start the year with a new, shorter intro, but I didn't get around to it, so here's the old one. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the Samsung G9 monitor, which I purchased kind of by accident, and I'll let you know on how I purchased my Samsung G9 for about 800 euros, which is almost half the price of what it's worth. I'll tell you a little story about this as well, but mainly I want to focus today on finding out, or basically sharing my experience, whether or not this monitor is something for sim racing, and is it true that it's almost virtual reality alike, because the big real estate that this monitor gives you, some people claim that it's almost like in VR. And my take on this is I never purchased this monitor for sim racing specifically. So that's why, for me, it's quite easy to discuss this issue, because from the get-go, I was pretty sure that I will not use this monitor for sim racing. However, I have built a quick release system that I have, I'll show you, that allowed me to fix this monitor here on the main table, where I'll be filming and gaming and just editing all these videos, but also to remove it here quickly and just attach it to the sim rig that you see in the back. Now, I was a little bit afraid, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit afraid that the resolution, the fast response time, the hertz, everything that this monitor has going for it will, kind of spoil me and make me compare VR in a new way, because I haven't been using any kind of fancy monitors for the past decade. So ever since the Oculus, developers kit even came out, I have ever since not purchased any fancy monitors. I never had more than 60 Hertz on a monitor because I frankly didn't care. I used projectors that are even worse in quality on the image quality itself, to be honest. But yeah, so when I got this monitor, obviously I was thinking, okay, maybe I can get a set of Corsa Competizione to run in, all of its nice graphics using the 3090 RTX that I have in the computer. Would it be possible to actually, drive in 2D? Because some part of me wanted to stream, and I never got around to it, but streaming in VR is very difficult, and some of you who are watching this maybe consider this monitor as a daily driver. And to make this story shorter, I will just tell you straight up, I hate this monitor for sim racing. I cannot drive in 2D anymore. It's not immersive. Just about everything that this monitor delivers on a regular game, I love, but in sim racing, it's just very disappointing. You cannot adjust if you adjust the field of view properly, like the way it's supposed to be, you will not be able to see all of your mirrors. Like the driver mirror, you will partially see. The side mirror, you will not see at all. And depending on which car you're driving, you may or may not see the rear view mirror. This turned me off completely. Like I tried it, I hated it from the first moment on, and it's just, I don't know. For me, no, this monitor is not worth for sim racing. However, for just about everything else, this monitor is a great purchase, especially at the price that I paid. And it has, a couple of bugs and problems, but they are sorted out mainly. And a lot of people report on the problems. When you try and search for the Samsung G9 monitor, you will see that on forums, people are complaining that it's flickering, people are complaining that it's not turning on after it goes to sleep, it makes some noises, it makes some smells. Listen, all I can tell you is that if you're about to purchase this kind of monitor, I'm sorry, I'm gonna take this off. It's not really a fashion statement, it's cold as balls here, but now that I'm recording, it's kind of warm. Anyway, so these monitors require you to research and really be patient and really fiddle around with some of the settings, updating drivers, updating firmware. All of this, yes, it's a pain, but it is new technology. I mean, there is nothing like this out there. It's 240 Hertz at 5120 by 1440 resolution at 1 millisecond response time with HDR 1000, G-Sync compatible, 1000R curve, 49-inch widescreen godness. I mean, there is literally nothing out there that can do that. 240 Hertz. Now, with that in mind, you will need to update the firmware. You will need to make sure that you purchase a monitor that is made no later than July of 2020. And I'll show you a way where you can see on the serial number how you can identify if this monitor has been made before July 2020, which is when they sorted out all of those mistakes and all those errors. Now, my monitor is made in September, and the story goes on how I purchased it for 800 euros is basically you need to look for some rich kids that purchase this kind of monitor but have no clue on what to do with it and how to properly set it up and what to look for with the errors. Now, when I purchased this, this kid basically showed me the 100 Hertz function, and it's like it's all working, and he advertised it cheaply mainly because basically it was flickering and it was making noises, and all the stuff that you will find on the internet that people complain about, it's sorted. You just need to do it. Like when I looked into the firmware of this monitor, it was still on August or July. So ever since that, there were like about 3 firmware updates. So you really need to make sure that you update those firmwares, and the way to do it is fairly complicated. I mean, it's not just download and install it onto the monitor, but you need to actually use a formatted USB stick with a FAT32 format, and you need to plug it into the right port on the back of this monitor and do the settings through the monitor and do the update through the monitor. Then you need to update your graphics card. NVIDIA has a hot fix if that doesn't work. There are different drivers for HDMI or DisplayPort, and you do obviously need to use the DisplayPort function if you want to use the 240 Hertz. And what gave me some trouble is that I didn't use the original cable, the DisplayPort cable that came with the monitor. And for those of you who are watching who have some problems, this mainly may be the problem or the cause. You cannot use long DisplayPort cables that are not certified to 1.4 standard of the DisplayPort. Right now I'm using a 5-meter cable that's actually not certified, but it is at Amazon, and I read a ton of reviews and everyone confirmed that this cable works flawlessly and it's quite cheap. I'll try and link that in the YouTube description if you need to grab it. But yeah, I had some flickering even after I installed all the drivers and made the firmware. You still need to make sure that your cable is actually 1.4, because I used, I don't know, 1.3, 1.2, whatever that cable was, it was working, but it had at some point some malfunctions occasionally. What else? Yeah, you do need to install the display driver. So a Samsung monitor driver. You may think that you have Windows 10, you don't need that. Yeah, you do need that. You do need that. I've also linked all of this on our new website. This is why I haven't been uploading a ton of stuff, because I've been building a website. It's called siggamesentertainment.com, and I put it there because many websites from Samsung, specifically in the US, do not provide this firmware update because apparently this monitor is discontinued in the States. Not sure on how that goes. I didn't read into it, but I know that the Samsung website, .com website, may not have the firmware updates, may not supply the drivers. They just don't care. But yeah, so just so you don't have to search on the Korean website or the Asian websites from Samsung. It's basically now on my server where you can always download it. For the G5 users, there is a newer firmware update. For the G9, I believe it's the 1008 firmware. All right, moving on from that, those of you who are interested in the widescreen format by Samsung, and if you looked into it, you will find that there is 3 different models that Samsung provides, and there's one older version that is 49 inches, but the resolution on it is 3840 by 1080, so not comparable with 5120 by 1440, and it's at 144 hertz, and there are some differences, obviously, because it's an older model. The only thing why you would consider that model is if you are not planning on upgrading a graphics card and you have a very low-end system, you may get away with the lower resolution. It's just easier to drive that. With the other 2 models, you will need a 3080 because 5120 by 1440, it's still less than 4K technically. But if you want to use the 240 hertz, I mean, there's just no way around a 3080 in the long run. I'm running it right now on the 3090. With ACC, we've managed to get everything on Epic at 90 frames steady using a 3090 and a 10900K. So just briefly to touch on the models so there is no confusion. The Samsung CH90, I believe it's called, that's the oldest version, the very first one. Then the middle version is the RG90, and this one is the G9. So the RG90 is something that I would consider greatly if you don't buy it on a second-hand basis. So if you were to order it from Amazon, I would consider the RG version, the middle version, because it still has the same resolution. It offers you 5120 by 1440. However, the response time is slower. It's 4 milliseconds instead of 1. Really, who cares? I think 4 milliseconds is perfectly fine for gaming. It doesn't do 240 hertz, it does 144. Again, not really a deal breaker. There will be very few games that you'll be able to play. They'll have to be very old or very greatly optimized to be able to run 240 hertz at that resolution. You will need a beefy PC. I tried several things, and 240 hertz is very difficult to drive steady. So, all right, now. Productivity, working, editing videos, that's all fantastic on this monitor, and it's very hard to go back from that monitor. So if you're planning on buying one and try it out for a month and maybe return it, you'll have a hard time. It's difficult to go back from that size to anything else. Speaking of difficult, you'll have a difficulty finding a desk space that is large enough to fit that monitor, and most likely you will need to mount it on a wall. Now my setup here is custom made. I've built that desk specifically for that monitor, as crazy as that sounds. I had all the materials here. This is the same aluminum frame extrusions that I used to build a simulator. I had a bunch of it here, and I used it to build a custom table, which is now 2 meters by 1 meter deep. And there is also a back wall that I built with it, where I can attach or quick release for this monitor. Now, keep in mind that the ideal distance to that monitor should be 1 meter. This is why it's a 1000 arc curve, which is made to fit your eye, and the ideal sitting position is 1 meter away from it. So if your desk is like 80, plus, you never really touch the desk when you're sitting, so there's another like 20 centimeters, more or less. I don't know what that is in inches, I don't care. So figure it out, but yeah, pay attention to try and have that ideal distance. Then you will not have to move your head when you're watching that big of a screen, because if you're sitting at the right position, you will have the entire screen in your vision and even in your peripheral vision. Now, games do tend to a little bit stretch on the sides depending on which optimization they have. None of this really matters. None of this is a deal breaker. You will not see any of those sides. It's a peripheral vision type of deal. Now, I specifically got this monitor for something entirely different, and I want to talk to you just a little bit about it, because there's a new game that I'm completely obsessed about, and so much so that I even included it on the new website, which has nothing to do with racing, but it is a simulation nevertheless. It's called Escape from Tarkov. It's a Russian-developed shooter simulation. It's not really a shooter. There is so much more to do. It's more like an RPG where it's crazy. If you're interested in that, check out the website sickgamesentertainment.com. You will have the sim link on that, where I kind of a little bit describe on what it is that fascinates me with that game title. And I've been developing it for about 8 years, same as Cyberpunk, but it works a lot better than Cyberpunk. It is in beta, and it is playable and it is purchasable, and it does work a lot better than Cyberpunk, even though they've been developing it with, I'm sure, a lower budget, but at the same time. Now, yeah, so in Escape of Tarkov, that game is so difficult, so hardcore, that I actually wanted to have the most advantage that I can buy. Like if I can see even a little bit of, enemies, it's a big advantage to have this kind of field of view, to have this kind of real estate on the game. But yeah, that for me made the purchase worthwhile, and I do believe that it's a great addition to anyone who can afford it. However, pay attention that it's not just the monitor that you will purchase down the line. If you scratch up your last money to get this kind of monitor, make sure that, or understand that if you don't have a 3080 right now, you will have to get a 3080 or 3090 or an AMD equivalent. But that monitor is just overkill in every sense of the way. It is quite future-proof, I believe. It isn't perfect. You will have to fiddle around stuff. You will have to deal with issues. But at the end of the day, most of them are resolved. I had some noises when it heats up. There is some crackling of the monitor, but it disappeared after a couple of days. So, I can't vouch for it, but this is something that I can tell you. Most of the issues I have been able to resolve. You need to pay attention, don't get scared. You will have to, once you make sure that the serial number is correct, go ahead and fiddle around, and you will get to a state where it's just beautiful, and there is nothing that can be compared to this monitor, even though I completely hate it for sim racing. For sim racing, guys, different approach. A friend of mine tried it with this setup on the sim rig, and he liked it. And he actually does VR as well, but he is used to monitor driving, so he kind of was amazed with it. I personally, I don't see the value. I don't see the reason why you would do it. Like, for what? You will get on the left a little bit of mirror, and on the right you basically just see the mid console of the car. For me, that was zero immersion, and I would take the cheapest VR headset over this monitor any time of the day for sim racing. So I don't know. If you have never tried VR, this monitor may be great for you. If you need it for streaming, this monitor may be great for you. If you tried VR, this is bullshit. Like, it's worthless. For sim racing, for other games, it's insane. All right, so I think I've touched on just about everything that I wanted. Couple of things I do want to mention. That picture-in-picture thing, it does have it. Doesn't resolve for me anything really in particular. I still have the second PC here. I still have the monitor underneath that monitor that I use for dual recording, dual PC setup. It's just so much easier and so much nicer. The picture-in-picture for me doesn't. Windows has a lot of difficulty, particularly with this monitor, but multiple monitors will have a greater chance of flickering. If you search Windows 10 flickering issue, it always comes up. Even in the FAQ of Microsoft itself will tell you, if you have multiple monitors, flickering may occur. Now, you will not be able to use 240 Hertz and a picture-in-picture. So that stuff doesn't work to my knowledge. And using 60 Hertz and then 240 and just mixing it up, the picture-in-picture, you cannot move around yourself. There are predefined places where you have to place it, and it's kind of disturbing. It doesn't solve anything for me. I will not be able to stream with this using, it's, for me at least, it doesn't work. That's my take on this. So for those of you who want to use that function, or mainly want to express interest in this monitor just because of that, no, doesn't what's the word for it? Doesn't impress. Let's just leave it at that. All right. Okay. I hope this is done. Subscribe to this channel for sake. There's 20% of you only subscribe to this channel. I don't know why, but is it really that bad here? No, I don't think so. And I'm trying to give you perspectives on, stuff that other reviewers want, like this right now. All right, check out the website. For any of you who are interested in trying the Escape from Tarkov, let me know. I need people to go with me on the squad, because I still noob out, and that game is so difficult. There is such a steep learning curve, but it's amazing, and it just completely gets you addicted. Check the website. Let me know what you think, if this is interesting to you. I'm sorry that I'm mixing content here, but there's a reason why it's called Sick Games Entertainment and not Sim Racing Entertainment or whatnot. I always wanted to do a little bit more than just sim racing. It needs to be on an adult level. Like, I don't want to play Call of Duty. Call of Duty is fine, but just it doesn't do me anything. It needs to be serious. It needs to be realistic. It needs to be hardcore, and that game is just hardcore of its finest. Like, you will see. You will find out. All right. So take care. I'm looking forward to this new year and hopefully more uploads. If I don't play Escape from Tarkov, then hopefully I'll be back here uploading more stuff. All right. Take care.